January 20th, 1993. Audrey Hepburn, Hollywood's most elegant icon, died at just 63 years old. The official cause: a cancer so rare, it strikes only 1 in 500,000 people. But here's what they didn't tell you. Audrey was healthy, active, working with UNICEF just months before. Then suddenly, stomach pain on a flight from Somalia. 3 months later, she was gone. How does a rare abdominal cancer kill that fast? And what if the seeds of her death were planted decades earlier? In a war-torn childhood, a lifetime of anxiety, and a deadly habit she couldn't quit. Today, we're examining the forensic evidence behind Audrey Hepburn's mysterious death. September 1992. Somalia, Africa. Just months before her death, Audrey Hepburn is on a UNICEF mission in war-torn Somalia. For years, she dedicated herself to helping refugee children. Working with the refugees was the driving force in her life. A colleague recalled, she felt she was changing situations and helping these poor little souls. Accompanying her is her boyfriend of 13 years, Dutch actor Robert Wolders. "What a blessing he is," Audrey said. "I could never do it alone. If I go to difficult places, I need a shoulder to lean on." But midway through the flight home, something goes terribly wrong. Audrey starts complaining to Robert of severe stomach pains and indigestion. She dismisses it as a bug she'd picked up in Africa. It had happened before. She wasn't the complaining type. A friend remembered. She always wanted to know how everybody else was. But about herself, she always pushed it off. As the journey progresses, so does the pain. She takes painkillers. Nothing works. The cramping becomes unbearable. But this was no ordinary stomach bug. What was happening inside Audrey's body would shock everyone. Early October 1992. Switzerland. Back home, Audrey seeks medical advice. Doctors assume she picked up an infection in Somalia and prescribe powerful antibiotics. But 5 days later, she's worse. Violent reactions, nausea, vomiting. The pain is excruciating. November 1st, Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Los Angeles. Robert convinces Audrey to see specialists in America. Doctors perform a laparoscopy, inserting a camera into her abdomen. What they found changed everything. A tumor on her colon. Surgeons immediately removed a foot of her intestine and started chemotherapy. "Somebody called me and said Audrey is at the hospital," a friend recalled. "They told me they had discovered the cancer." Audrey remained hopeful. "I'm all right," she told friends. "They are treating me and we'll wait to see what happens." But on December 9th, her pain worsened. Surgeons operated again, suspecting a bowel obstruction. During the procedure, they discovered the cancer had spread throughout her abdomen. They declared it inoperable. Nobody had noticed anything before, a colleague said. It was a very rare cancer and everybody was surprised. They caught it too late. Audrey had pseudomyxoma peritonei, PMP, a cancer so rare that only 1 in 500,000 people develop it. The cancerous cells produce jelly-like mucus that fills the abdominal cavity, strangling the intestines and crushing surrounding organs. But how did Audrey develop such a rare disease? The answer lies buried in her past. May 4th, 1929. Brussels, Belgium. Audrey Hepburn was born to a British-Austrian banker and a Dutch aristocrat. But her childhood was anything but privileged. When Audrey was just 6, her father abandoned the family. Her father had almost rejected her, a biographer noted. So there was a sadness. Then came the war. In 1940, believing the Netherlands would remain neutral, Audrey's mother moved them to Holland. It was a terrible mistake. On May 10th, Hitler's forces invaded. And then the truth about her past emerged. She had a terrible, terrible time when the Nazis came in. A friend remembered. Some of her family were killed. Despite the danger, 13-year-old Audrey joined the resistance. She performed in blacked-out ballet shows to secretly raise money. She carried messages. She collected funds. If you were a member of the resistance and they found out, you were finished, she later said. Her uncle, a judge, was imprisoned and murdered by the Nazis. Audrey witnessed trainloads of Dutch citizens sent to concentration camps. But the worst was yet to come. By winter 1944, the Germans cut off supply routes to the Netherlands. Food ran out. There were times when she and her mother were starving, literally starving, a colleague recalled. They would go several days without food. They were going into parks and digging up flower bulbs. By February 1945, over 500 Dutch people were dying of hunger each week. Audrey was so weak she could barely climb stairs. She developed anemia, jaundice, and edema, severe swelling of her arms and legs. Studies of female survivors of the Hunger Winter who experienced severe calorie restriction in childhood found they had significantly increased risks of breast and colon cancer decades later. Audrey's cancer, pseudomyxoma peritonei, is a type of colon cancer. Upon liberation in April 1945, a Dutch soldier handed Audrey bars of chocolate. She devoured them. "Sweet things is what I longed for," she remembered. "Whole boxes of chocolate. In fact, one of the first things I did was eat a whole can of condensed milk, and then was terribly ill afterwards." From that moment on, Audrey associated chocolate and cigarettes with freedom, comfort, security. It was an association that would haunt her for life. Audrey's big break came when she was spotted in a Monaco hotel lobby and cast as the lead in a Broadway play. "I was astounded by this gorgeous creature," a co-star recalled. "She had this lovely, elfin-like quality." 2 years later, she starred opposite Gregory Peck in Roman Holiday. She won an Oscar. She became an icon. But behind the elegance was crippling anxiety. Audrey really never enjoyed being a movie star, a friend revealed. She didn't like the attention. She was shy. She was rather melancholy. And she smoked. Heavily. Audrey started smoking at 15. By her Hollywood years, she was smoking up to 60 cigarettes a day, nearly 3 packs. Audrey Hepburn, I'm sorry to relate, was a chain smoker, a colleague said. She was insecure. She didn't believe her talent was anything remarkable, coupled with the fact that she was an extremely anxious woman. She was rarely seen without a cigarette, on set, at home, in promotional photos for breakfast at Tiffany's. Smoking increases cancer risk by up to 75%. And while most smoking-related cancers occur in the lungs, the carcinogens in tobacco can trigger cancer anywhere in the body, including the abdomen. But the cancer had already spread. September 1954. Audrey married actor Mel Ferrer. Audrey wanted to have children more than anything, a friend said. She was constantly talking about wanting to get pregnant. Within 5 months, she was pregnant. But weeks later, she miscarried. It really affected her. It traumatized her, the friend recalled. There's a sense of your body letting you down. In 1959, while filming The Unforgiven, Audrey fell off a horse and broke her back. She was pregnant. She suffered her second miscarriage. It proved third time lucky when her son Sean was born in July 1960. Her marriage to Ferrer ended after 14 years. She remarried Italian psychiatrist Andrea Ditti and had a second son, Luca. But in 1974, she suffered her fourth miscarriage. Having children was a very big deal, a colleague said. Consequently, her children meant a great deal to her. But the miscarriages took their toll. Studies show women who suffer multiple miscarriages have a twofold increased risk of developing ovarian cancer. And pseudomyxoma peritonei, in some cases, originates in the ovaries. After her divorce from Ferrer in 1968, friends noticed something disturbing. Audrey stopped eating. "We were aware that she didn't eat very much," a co-star recalled. "We would go to the commissary and gorge on pasta. Audrey usually just ate an apple and a piece of cheese for the entire day." Another colleague remembered asking how she stayed so thin. She said, "I order everything I could possibly want off the menu, and then I take just one bite of it." At one point, Audrey weighed just 94 pounds. At 5 feet 7 inches, that gave her a BMI of 14, severely underweight. "I think probably she was anorexic," a friend said. She was really thin. One childhood trauma may hold all the answers. Audrey's relationship with food traced back to the Hunger Winter. After years of starvation, she'd learned to survive on almost nothing. Food wasn't something she took much enjoyment in, a biographer noted. Being able to control when she ate, how much she ate, probably gave her a sense of security. The only things she couldn't control? Chocolate and cigarettes, the two things that represented freedom to her starving teenage self. Women with anorexia have twice the mortality rate from cancer. The stress placed on the body increases risks of miscarriage and stillbirth, and the nutritional deficiencies can suppress the immune system, the body's defense against abnormal cells, turning into tumors. December 19, 1992. Los Angeles International Airport. With Christmas just days away, Audrey is desperate to get home to Switzerland to be with her sons. But she's too weak to fly commercially. She's now reliant on morphine for the pain. Her friend, fashion designer Hubert de Givenchy, arranges a private jet. Her final days revealed the ultimate irony. December 25th, Tolkienaz, Switzerland. Audrey spends Christmas with Sean, Luca, Robert, and close friend Krista Roth. We spent Christmas together. Krista remembered. Christmas lunch, she enjoyed it very much. It was a wonderful time. January 13th, 1993. Audrey feels strong enough to walk in her garden with Robert and Krista. She adored her garden. Krista said, "We walked in the garden and she would look at the flowers." She did that a couple of times until she couldn't anymore. January 17th. Audrey's condition deteriorates. She's bedridden. When I called, I said, "Can I come and see you?" And they said yes. She wants to see you. Krista recalled. We talked a bit, not very long, because she was very tired. Cancer fatigue is common at the end stage. The disease dramatically reduces hemoglobin levels. Cells aren't getting oxygen. The fatigue increases until the patient finally becomes unconscious. January 20th. Audrey slips in and out of consciousness. It was terrible for me to see her suffering like that. Krista said, "I just did not want to believe that she was going to die." Her sons say their goodbyes. At 8 p.m., Audrey Hepburn dies at home, surrounded by the people she loved most. For me, it was as if somebody had taken the most important person out of my life. Krista said, that she wouldn't be there anymore. I just didn't want to believe it. Robert Wolders was devastated. When Audrey died, I'll never forget it. A friend said. He sent me a beautiful little picture of her as a little girl. It was very emotional. Audrey Hepburn's cause of death was advanced pseudomyxoma peritonei, an extremely rare cancer that affects only 1 in 500,000 people. It's difficult to know exactly where the disease originated, her appendix, ovaries, or colon, but it likely started many years before and had progressed to her abdominal wall by the time it was discovered. Unlike other cancers, PMP has a very slow progression and may be asymptomatic until advanced stages. By the time Audrey felt symptoms on that flight from Somalia, it was already too late. She died just 2.5 months after diagnosis. But was it purely bad luck? Or did her past seal her fate? The evidence points to a perfect storm. Childhood starvation during the Hunger Winter, which studies linked to increased colon cancer risk decades later. Lifetime smoking habit, up to 60 cigarettes a day for nearly 50 years, dramatically increasing cancer risk. Chronic anxiety and depression, which suppress the immune system's ability to fight abnormal cells. Possible eating disorder, which doubled her cancer mortality risk. Multiple miscarriages, linked to increased ovarian cancer risk. Any one of these factors alone might not have caused cancer, but together, they created the conditions for a rare and aggressive disease to take hold. As a child, I was taught that it was bad manners to draw attention to yourself, Audrey once said. I then went on to make a rather nice living doing just that. Audrey Hepburn was an icon of grace, elegance, and humanitarianism. But beneath the glamour was a woman haunted by trauma, struggling with anxiety, and trapped by habits formed in the darkest chapter of her life. Audrey's legacy, a friend said, is that she could make beauty shine everywhere. People remember her so much because she was such a warm-hearted, natural kind of person. She was an extraordinary human being. In the end, Audrey Hepburn's death reminds us that even the most elegant lives can hide the deepest scars.